Yeah, hi, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is John Lee. I've been in the video game and the esports industries for the last 15 years. My involvement in crypto and blockchain started in 2014 when I got my first Bitcoin. Like most people, it started out as a hobby. It's gotten more and more. And very happy to be here and also introduce the panelists today. So we have actually three speakers from Argentina with us today. And not to do them injustice, I'll let them each introduce themselves and what they do in this space.
Hello, I'm Fede Molina from the Centerland, a virtual world where users can create, share, and monetize 3D experiences. This world is divided into finite land parcels that allow the users to have full control of their ownership.
All right, hey, how's it going? My name is Matthias Nissenson. I'm the CEO at Experimental, which is a blockchain gaming studio. We're about to launch the first strategy game to be fully decentralized over the Ethereum network. And yep, that's it.
Hi, hello. My name is Federico. I'm the CEO of CryptoCap, which is a gaming prediction platform. We started with a game for the World Cup where people can start trading prediction with NFTs. So planning to run and build more games in the future.
All right. A lot of people ask me what the relevance of blockchain and gaming is, and I think that it's actually very relevant because anyone who's played online games, you take the virtual communities and the virtual currencies in online games, even going back to the late 90s or early 2000s, they're effectively the prototype on a centralized basis for cryptocurrency. So I'm going to ask the different panelists what they think about what the relevance of blockchain and gaming is in terms of where the market is and where they think the market is going.
Sure. The market is really at early stages. There are some proof of concepts around, mostly built on crypto collectibles. But I think that blockchain gaming has a lot of potential because, like you said, they share a lot of things with games. But I think that they are more fair for the user, since users can benefit from true ownership of their assets. They can benefit from liquidity. This means like cashing out items and buying items, and nobody can take that away from them. And also a cool feature is interoperability, which means that they can use the same items in different games. This is something we haven't seen in the regular industry so far.
To me, and yeah, I know you guys are all Bitcoiners and Bitcoin maximalists and all that. But for me, crypto gaming is going to be like a gateway for the normal users, for the users that don't know about crypto. I think it's going to be like a door to the crypto world. So I think it's going to be good for everyone. Like a game is addictive, a game is simple, it's really easy to understand. And during the process of the game, if you somehow acquire an asset which is worth something, you're gonna want to. You will want to learn. To learn how to take care of it, how to protect it, how to not get stolen, maybe how to get more, how to cash out. And that's all the same process that you need to you need to understand to buy Bitcoin or to buy any other cryptocurrency.
Yeah, well, I think I'm seeing a progress. So we saw CryptoKitties as the biggest game, maybe, which is a basic one. And now, probably you're aware about Gods Unchained. I think it's like a 2.0 game, and we are just seeing about Experimental, like a strategic game, which is maybe the 3.0. Is that okay? Yeah. So we are seeing progress. In our case, I think transparency, because we are not maybe a strategic game. We are more into the sports and esports as well. Transparency is like a strong point for us, and that's why we are using blockchain.
Can I just ask how many of you heard of CryptoKitties? All right, that's good.
All right, well, I think that's actually a good time to talk about CryptoKitties, because CryptoKitties was very popular for a short amount of time and then obviously ran into some major scalability issues. And so is Ethereum the right protocol for games, or what is the right protocol to be using for games? I'm sure each one of you has a different approach and experience with this problem.
Yes, for me, the most important thing to tackle at the moment is not so much scalability, but user experience at its core. So at the moment, to play a game. Like CryptoKitties, you need to have Ether in your account, download MetaMask, sign the transactions, which is very, very awkward for regular gamers. And it's a very big, steep learning curve. So before scalability, I think that's the main problem. Then scalability, I think it's a matter of time, to be honest. And it's a matter of how much people are interested in the industry, and if there are more people, then that problem will be solved faster.
To me, so for the ones that are not aware, CryptoKitties are these tokens, that are like cats on the blockchain. And when they came out, they completely clogged the Ethereum network. It was crazy, like they fucked up the whole network. So that's where the question is coming from. We are using a company called Loom, which is like a sidechain solution. So you have the main chain, which is Ethereum, and you have a sidechain, which is much faster, and it's still kind of decentralized because it has 21 nodes. Whatever happens in the game goes there in the sidechain, and then a hash is sent back into the mainnet. So that's the solution we are using now. That's basically because it's the only one that works. But I think we're going to see progress from the Ethereum core, like an actual Ethereum developer solution.
Yeah, I mean, for very transactional games, maybe we are having issues, but definitely the core developers from Ethereum are like looking for new improvements in order to solve these issues. So I don't see having problems in the future. As Federico said, it's just a question of time. And in our case, we believe that UX and UI is extremely important. We saw a lot of games in the Ethereum blockchain, which I believe are kind of interesting, but it's very difficult not only to get cryptos and play, but then to understand them, as the UX is not so easy. I don't know you, John, that you have a great experience. What's your opinion about it?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the games that we're seeing right now are just very, very early implementations. I mean, in terms of like what we even define as games. I mean, the first implementations are really more like coin flip type of like bit dice type of games, and now we're seeing collectible games around non-fungible tokens, like CryptoKitties or like EtherBots, and like more developed versions of that. I'm really interested from the panelist perspective is like when they think more sophisticated games are going to come out on the blockchain, and what are they going to look like? Are they going to continue to be NFT based collectibles, or are we going to be seeing something a little bit more robust?
Yeah, we'll see. No, we'll see. Like, to me, there's a big difference between a game which is completely centralized but puts their assets on the blockchain, and a fully blockchain game. So that means a game that fully runs on smart contracts, or it's completely decentralized. And I think we will start seeing robust games, like actual games. We just saw like trading card games. Those are like the first prototypes. So I think it's just a matter of time until the infrastructure evolves enough, to have a real game. Yeah.
I think we agree.
So I have another question for you guys. If you could choose any game, historical or current, that you think would be ideal to tokenize, what would it be? Like, for example, I used to play a lot of Civilization. I was like addicted to Civilization 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Would you say I would love to tokenize Dota for this reason, or I'd love to tokenize StarCraft for this reason, or I'd love to tokenize FIFA Manager, but for this reason? I'm sure each of you have a favorite game, and maybe in your head like how you would tokenize it.
Well, I spent a lot of years playing Diablo 2, and that game had a really, really big economy, and like 80% of the people were just trading and doing magic finds to get rare drops. So I think that would be a really awesome game to tokenize.
I recently saw a company that's called, it's called Pixel, but they have this game with like 40 million downloads called The Sandbox, which is like a city builder for users. And they have this nice concept in which users, it's user-generated content. And I think for every game with user-generated content, it makes sense to tokenize it and then have a way to sell the token you generated. And those are scarce items as well. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, in my case, as I like football very much, so I used to play a game called PC Football and then move into the fantasy games. So I believe that we can like tokenize the players and do like a draft in having a token of a player in each team, and we compete against each other, and then we can trade players, like buy and sell players in order to get more points. I think that's an interesting idea.
Do you see any esports going blockchain? What's your take on that?
I mean, I think that I think that like I mean, an obvious use case would be, you know, in video games right now, it's around item economies and skin economies, right? And so like let's take a game like Counter-Strike, being able to tokenize and put a smart contract on every single game item, not only on a skin, but on every like rifle and every scope and every kind of like attachment that you put on a weapon. You could apply that to the same on an MMORPG. I used to play a lot of EverQuest. So like every sword, every staff, every piece of armor, every kind of unique or legendary or rare item in the game that you could tokenize it and put that onto a virtual marketplace like Wax. So I think there's plenty of use cases in both video games as well as esports.
For us, just one more thing for us, one of the main things about this is that not only like professional players or professional streamers with a lot of followers are gonna be able to make money out of gaming, but also like amateur gamers, and that's what we're looking for, like normal players, like just any of you or any of us, being able to, you know, to make a living out of their gaming experience. So I think that's gonna be like the future, to say it in a way.
Security tokens. Everyone talks about security tokens and STOs these days. Any relevance for gaming industry?
I think it definitely has relevance in some use cases. For us, particularly, like if you already have a game which is working and you can prove that the game is working and that the token is related to the game and has some inherent like functionality, then it makes sense. It makes no sense to have a security token, but a utility, because it has a utility. And if you're not giving, you know, like dividends or anything like this, then for us, like for our games, it makes no sense.
Yeah, I think not for the game itself, maybe for the gaming company. I mean, you can do an STO in order to give dividends to the one who invested in you, but that's it, not for the game itself.
Yes, I agree. The same. It's more for the funding maybe than for the actual gameplay.
But there are like, not for us. Our games are mostly deterministic, and you know there is no randomness, so it's not considered gambling. But if you're doing I've seen like gambling games where it makes sense to have a security, because if you have to, you know, if you have like this, like, you know, it's almost a pyramid scheme where you have to like get other users and everything. In that sense, if you're giving dividends, then you should have a security, at least if you don't want to go to jail, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree. I would say that I get asked the question in terms of esport, what the relevance is for security token. I think it's a limited opportunity, but it's one that could be very attractive for certain companies, certain brands. So for example, I'll come up with a very generic example. Let's say I'm the owner of, you know, Real Madrid. Real Madrid is based on basically a community kind of voucher system called Socios, and they're like 14,000 shares, and each member that has a share of this gets benefits. They can have like credits in the system. It sounds a lot like a kind of a blockchain play, although it was invented in the 19th century. So let's say you take an esports team. You know, I'm not sure everyone in the audience knows like who the top teams are, but I'll just say like Fnatic, right? Like let's say you take Team Fnatic and say, okay, we're going to like issue 1 billion tokens and give everyone fractional ownership in Fnatic. This is the only way that you can have a piece of the Fnatic story. You can have a dividend you know, based on the prize money of Fnatic every year. You get access to special items like, you know, merchandise, like, you know, events, being part of like the prestige and patina, being able to say, hey, I'm a co-owner of Fnatic.
But
Something like that may work.
Do you think that, am I going to be able, for example, to vote on a frenetic strategic decision?
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, if you have like if you have a token system, and then based on like your fractional ownership, to say it's effectively a proxy vote in a public equity, saying it's like, all right, we want to change the logo of the team. All right, people who own tokens can actually participate in the decision. We want to change the roster. And it's a very controversial decision to whether to replace this person or not. We could give it to the shareholders and give it to it as a vote, right? And then you can do that with security tokens that you can't do right now.
And I mean, so you as a team, let's say Frenetic, has to agree the decision of the token holders, because maybe sometimes it is not the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, I myself, I'm a co-owner of an esports team. So like if I were considering an STO, which I'm not saying I am, and I'm also saying I'm not. But yeah, I would probably incorporate both an ecosystem play, a voting play, and a dividend play, because that would be the most attractive for the fans to say like, okay, we want to be part of the story.
Absolutely.
And I think the game companies can do the same thing. If you are a game company on your first game, then probably it's very difficult. But then if you have like a track record and you want to fund using alternative fundraising, like saying it's like, okay, we want to create a sequel. And everyone played the previous game, and like for the sequel, we're not going to go to the publishers, or we're not going to pre-sell items, but we're going to give you a dividend in the proceeds of the lifetime revenues of the sequel game. I think that would be attractive to people.
Yeah.
Yes,
People could vote on balance changes also.
Oh no! I would not go. Users are not the kind of people that you want to be asking balance questions.
I know.
All right. So I have a couple more questions to ask, and then we can maybe open it up to the floor in terms of like stuff. So I think what would be with the current market correction, everyone's saying a lot of ICOs and all these like so-called shit coins are going to be disappearing and whatnot. But personally, I love this market condition because I think the survivors are only going to be stronger, and you're going to be more successful, and it's going to be a healthier ecosystem going forward. So I'm going to ask the panelists, each one of you, to name a gaming or esports related ICO that has occurred that you think will survive. Just one, and why?
Decentraland.
No. It can't be your own. It can't be your own.
Well, crypto wars.
Well, that's fine. No, for me, first I would say that I think that's perfectly fine. Like most companies should die, and this is just like Darwinist theory. But if I had to choose one that have a token and hosted an ICO, or at least like a private sale, Loom it's a really interesting one, because they're not only building the games but also the infrastructure. So they have like double the chances to survive, right? Because yeah, they have two different products and they're doing both things pretty well. So yeah, I would choose Loom.
Yeah, in my case, maybe it's not a game, but there's the company. It's related to what we were talking before. The company called Chilis.
Chilis, Socios, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they are trying like tokenizing esports teams and other maybe football clubs, and we'll see what's going on in the future. But I think that they seem to be doing a good job.
Okay, and you didn't give a right answer, or it wasn't. You can't say like anything on so like something that's not on stage right now.
Okay, I have to agree with Mati. Loom, I think it's very promising.
Okay.
I know the guys, and I've seen the text, and I think that's very promising.
Okay. If I were to choose a project that I like and I think has relevance going forward, it would be Wax.
Wax?
Yeah. Nice. And why? Because like people, I mean, more and more games are going to be coming out, and more virtual items are going to be traded back and forth. We've seen these type of marketplace companies on pre-blockchain, and it only makes more sense on the blockchain going forward.
I agree that yeah, marketplaces for NFTs are going to be huge. But now they have some companies competing, like OpenSea, Rarebits. They have a couple.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you're going to be running into the the incumbents in the space. And so like Wax obviously had a little bit of a problem with Valve recently. And I think maybe this is a good lead into our final question is kind of like, what do you think the barriers are going forward to be working with or against the traditional game companies like the EAs or the Activision or the Valves of the world?
Barriers as in competing against them or?
So is it going to be cooperating with them, competing with them, or we call it cooperation, where you're both competing and cooperating with them?
At this point, I think it's cooperation because there's a lot to build, and what's better than a high-profile company giving, advancing the technology and advancing the publicity of the space. I think that's very beneficial for everyone.
I think most small companies like startups are much more advanced, tech-wise than the big ones. Like we saw companies like Ubisoft, trying to incubate other startups to learn from their tech, and obviously startups can learn from the distribution of Ubisoft and many other things. To us in particular, we like building startups. Growing them and then selling them. And I think what's going to happen is as soon as blockchain gaming proves to be, a real thing and a real market, these giants will go shopping for these blockchain gaming startups. So I think it's going to be cooperate in some way.
Yeah, I think that maybe blockchain gaming, hopefully it will succeed and we will see like new gaming studios going bigger and bigger, and hopefully the old ones will not buy the new ones, as if not they will enter into the same ecosystem and we'll see like new giants into this world. I think it's a great opportunity, blockchain, not only in banking and a lot of stuff, but in gaming as well.
So you see it as an opportunity where companies that get into the space, raise their money, stay independent, can then disrupt and put the Valve or the EAs out of business someday.
I mean, hopefully. I know that then money is money. So,
right.
But yeah, I hope that we will see new gaming studios related to blockchain. Maybe then they will move into other things. But this is a great opportunity for newborn companies.
I mean, I would tend to think that. I mean, if I'm going to chip in with my answer, I would say technology providers, protocols. They're going to be the first ones that are going to be acquired by guys like Unity, guys like Epic, because they would see that as like a kind of add-on to their existing kind of like enterprise offerings. Game companies themselves, it's really about creating like brands and IP. I mean, myself coming from like a major game publisher background, they tend to like to buy franchises. Is this game have the potential to be a franchise? Because like otherwise then it's like you're going on like Fallout 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or Skyrim 1, 2, 3, or Elder Scrolls, whatnot. I mean, they wanna buy these type of brands over technology, unless you have some kind of technology that has a moat around it with patents and whatnot that otherwise you wouldn't be able to acquire.
Yes.
I think that in some ways the kind of interoperability and the portability of the items that you buy, I don't think is realistically where like an EA or an Activision are going to work together. I don't see them wanting to work with one another, but some of these companies have such large portfolios, internal, that like, okay, if I bought 10 years worth of items in one game, I can like then transport that to another game within the same publisher. Right, and so like I bring up EverQuest again. I used to play a lot of EverQuest when I was young. If Sony Online were to say, it's like, oh, well, whatever you buy in one game, you can transport to another game within the Sony Online family, that would probably make a lot of sense for the individual publishers. But I don't see the actual publishers cooperating with each other, but you may think differently.
No, I think it makes sense in this current context that the current publishers won't cooperate with each other, but there's a lot of, like you said, umbrella companies in their portfolios like Blizzard that have a lot of games and even have the same storylines in some games. And I think that they could leverage the interoperability.
I have a last question for you, actually, that you're the most experienced one. like, do you see this, like, do you see blockchain gaming as, you know, when social gaming came out, when mobile gaming came out, this kind of trend, do you identify like similar patterns to those trends, or do you see it more like VR that then, you know, it was like super techy but never really worked out?
Look, I mean, these platform shifts always occur. Some platforms are more relevant than others. I'll give you a great example. Everything was on PC client server based on PC for a while, then everything moved over to web-based. Web-based games really didn't last very long. It was really just like a 2-year thing. And then everything shifted to smartphones. And then smartphones actually turned out to be a much longer lasting platform of choice. A lot of people in the industry, myself included, we thought of games on feature phones like Tetris and you know, columns. And when people were like pitching us games on smartphones, we were just like, why would I do that? I've been playing, you have Tetris and that's all?
And a snake.
And snakes, yeah, or Minesweeper, or Solitaire. So there's like a whole generation of people, myself included, that missed out on the whole smartphone gaming boom. VR, I think, is probably, you know, again, my opinion, is probably going to be another like web browser-based technology. I don't think, you know, you're going to be running around playing a game for 6 hours with like some clunky helmet on your head. I mean, I think maybe if the form factors come down to the point where, you know, it's like, you know, wearing a microphone like this, maybe. I think augmented reality, mixed reality games are going to be more and more relevant, but the technologies aren't here yet. And then, and combining that with blockchain, I think, is also going to be disruptive. It's probably going to be a conflux of different technologies that's going to be disruptive to the current console and the PC players.
That makes sense.
So one question for you also. Do you think that some of the current game could work on the blockchain, or there needs to be a new genre, a new type of game that's perfect for the blockchain?
I think I'm not creative enough to say that there's going to be a different kind of game that's like perfect for the blockchain, but I think any game that already has virtual communities, virtual trading, and virtual currencies, like an MMORPG, is perfect to be disrupted by blockchain. And that's already a really big opportunity. If you look at, like, let's say World of Warcraft, and you were to tokenize every item in World of Warcraft, that would be a huge opportunity. So like if someone were to come up with a game at the production level of World of Warcraft, the depth of World of Warcraft, but then have that all attached to the blockchain, then I think you could finally knock World of Warcraft off of its mantle. But to create that kind of game it's not going to be cheap.
I agree.
You want to open up to the...
Yeah, so we got about 5 minutes left, so we could like open up for Q&A if anyone wants to ask questions.
There's a question right there. Yeah, you.
So you mentioned that it wouldn't make sense for a publisher to open their games like tokenize their items because, say for instance, if they don't charge for the game and they only monetize by selling the items, it doesn't make sense for them to, you know, have the users sell the items amongst each other because then they lose monetization. So then you mentioned that maybe Sony wants to do that, have like users trade their items amongst each other, but within the Sony ecosystem for different games. So what will be the added value of having a decentralized way of just exchanging items within a centralized single publisher ecosystem?
The only added value would be obsolescence, right? If I've spent 10 years on one game and it's time to kind of sunset that game and I don't want to see all my money and all my items disappear, you could transport it to another game within the same publisher ecosystem. It would make sense for them. But in terms of like opening up APIs to their competitors, they're never going to do that. I come from a publisher background, and I would be, if I was sitting on the other side of the table, I would never allow that. And then if somebody were to say to us, it's like, hey, well, why don't you experiment with blockchain and do this? We're like, all right, well, we do $1.5 billion in revenues last year. why try to fix what isn't broken and introduce something that actually might piss off our user base or actually disrupt our user base?
So probably it has to be a player from the outside that does that, right?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think somebody's going to want to come in and say, like, all right, League of Legends has been popular for 10 years. Everyone's tried to copy League of Legends, but like, they're still the #1 MOBA out there. The only way to like knock League of Legends off its perth is like, we got to have blockchain. And then you're going to go to Silicon Valley and then you're say like, all right, give us $100 million and we'll become the next League of Legends. And we're going to use blockchain to do it. And like a Kleiner Perkins or like a major Silicon Valley firm will say, it's like, okay, we believe in the team and we'll fund you. Most likely that team are going to all be ex-Riot guys. Or same thing with World of Warcraft. You're going to say, hey, we need $100 million to beat World of Warcraft because we want to fully tokenize and put everything on the blockchain. And by the way, every one of us, lead server programmer, lead client programmer, lead artist, lead graphic designer from World of Warcraft, we all ex-Blizzard guys. So we know how the mousetrap works, and we're willing to do the things that management isn't willing to do, give us money. Then I think that would probably be where you see the big game, in my opinion.
Sorry, just one more thing. For me, it makes no sense. Like if I'm selling you a token, then I shouldn't be controlling it in any way, and I would justify that with, the ARPU, like the average revenue per user in blockchain gaming is much higher than in regular gaming. Like we have guys spending like $2,000 in a single asset, like on a sword or in any kind of skin. So if you pay $2,000 for something, I'm gonna let you do whatever the fuck you want with it, right? So yeah, that's my answer.
Other questions?
Yes. I'm struggling to understand the value of a blockchain for a single publisher scenario. I see a platform like Ethereum making more sense for co-opetition. So a case where it's advantageous to have a shared protocol or platform between different publishers. So they don't necessarily trust each other, but there's some advantage to working together. For example, like esports gambling, if the different tournaments come together on a single platform, then it brings liquidity and scale, like user scale. So what's the point of a single publisher blockchain? You can just give people tokens on a website.
Well, the single publisher can use, for example, Ethereum, and I think the biggest change is it's more fair for the user. Nowadays, if you play CSGO, if you play Dota 2, I even buy a lot of skins, and I can't cash out. I know it's wrong to buy them, but I still do. And with this way, you enable the people to cash out their skins, to trade them. So you give them more liberty, I think.
And to answer your question on like the esports gambling side, I think there's actually a large opportunity there, but the publisher can't touch it because inherently the games that the publishers are releasing have kids in them. They have minors, and so they can't actually even if someone to them and said like, hey, there's a huge utility for you guys to all work together and like pool your resources and the users, it'll be like, yeah, but we can't touch it. But that's an opportunity for someone else to do.
In the traditional blockchain, on the traditional gaming industry, what's the sentiment or the reaction that you get when talking about decentralized gaming? Are we on a point of why would you know that? Why would you need that? Or it's interesting.
I think when I talk to a lot of people in the traditional gaming industry, the second-tier companies are more open to blockchain, and the reason why they're more open to it is like, all right, well, we've tried to come up with our own Grand Theft Auto. We've tried to come up with our own, WoW killer. We've tried to come up with our own League of Legends killer, and we fell flat on our face. People aren't moving from that game, so. From their perspective, it's like, all right, well, experimenting with blockchain, maybe this is a way for us to break in. But if you're a first-tier developer, first-tier publisher, you're already making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars a year. Why introduce something that actually may hurt your existing leadership position?
Thank you very much. And we're exactly on time.